Who were the first people to live in Yorubaland in present-day Nigeria? Where did Yoruba people come from? And what did archaeology reveal about them? Among the peoples of Africa, the Yoruba stand out for their rich and detailed myths, legends, and historical narratives. From time immemorial, Yoruba people preserve their past through strong oral traditions, passed down carefully from one generation to the next. These extensive historical traditions, as well as the exceptional works of art discovered at Ife, drew the attention of European scholars even before the colonial period. So much so that the German ethnologist Leo Frobenius in the early 20th century compared the richness of Yoruba myths to those of ancient Egypt. Hermann Baumann, the influential German Africa expert, described the Yoruba as one of the most outstanding people in Africa because of their traditions. And the French historian Raymond Monny considered Ilé-Ifẹ to be the most important archaeological site in Africa south of the Sahara. Ilé-Ifẹ, the traditional capital of the Yoruba, is at the center of the Yoruba origin story. It is renowned for its remarkable works of art, especially its sculptures, which show a high level of skill and detail. But these discoveries also create major questions. How old are the Yoruba people, and where did they come from? Of recent, West African historians, in renouncing the Hamitic hypothesis, insist that the Yoruba people originated in West Africa and that their history can be traced back to at least the 7th century BC. But how do we explain the Ife artworks that seem to be even older? Were they the result of early influences from Mediterranean civilizations, or from Egypt, or even the Near East, as some have suggested? These theories led to heated debates for many years. Today, new evidence from archaeology, linguistics, and historical research is helping to answer these questions more clearly. Modern scholars now focus on two main explanations for the origin of the Yoruba people. The first is the Autochthonous Theory. This is the idea that the Yoruba emerged in West Africa and developed over a long period of time. This theory looks closely at the Yoruba creation story and explains it in a historical way. The second is the migration theory. This theory suggests that the ancestor of the Yoruba, Odùduwà, migrated from outside the region, possibly from the Near East, the Middle East, or even from another part of West Africa. In this video, we will look closely at these two origin theories. We will examine the myths, the historical accounts, and the archaeological discoveries that scholars use to support their arguments. By the end, you can decide for yourself which explanation makes the most sense. If you'd like to see more Yoruba history, let me know by clicking the subscribe button. To understand the origin of the Yoruba people, we must first answer the important question: who are the Yoruba? The Yoruba are one of the major people of West Africa. In Nigeria, they are found mainly in the western region, where they have long formed a large and influential population. Beyond this core area, Yoruba-speaking groups also live in a small part of northern Nigeria and extend into neighboring countries such as present-day Benin and Togo, where they were known by the name Anago. Yoruba descendants are also found in Sierra Leone, especially in Freetown, where they are known as the Aku people. And across the Atlantic, they can be found in places like Brazil, where they are known as the Lukumi. Furthermore, within Nigeria, some groups are directly connected to the Yoruba. The Itsekiri of Western Nigeria are an offshoot of the main Yoruba stock. There are also strong historical links between the Yoruba and the Benin Kingdom. The Oba of Benin and his immediate nobility trace their origin to Ilé-Ifẹ. From this connection, members of the Benin royal family carried Yoruba influence eastward across the Niger River, reaching areas such as Onitsha and part of the Niger Delta. Even though the Yoruba are spread across different regions, they share a common origin. It is possible that they once had an older name that is now lost. The name Yoruba itself is a relatively recent invention. Because Yorubaland was likely first known to Europe from the north through the explorers of northern and central Africa, Early European records used terms given by their northern neighbors. For example, Webster's Geographical Dictionary referred to the region as Yariba and its capital as Katunga, which are the terms for Yoruba and Oyo in old records of the Hausa and Fulani. Despite their spread, the Yoruba maintain a largely homogeneous culture. Traditionally, they are farmers who prefer to live in towns rather than scattered settlements. Their political system is based on kingship, but it also includes elements of shared decision-making. This means their system can be described as both monarchical and democratic. Their traditional religion involves many deities, but they recognize one supreme deity known as Olorun. The Yoruba are also known for their artistic skill. In the past, their craftsmanship reached a very high level, especially in sculpture and other forms of art. Certain qualities are often associated with the Yoruba people. They are known for their strong sense of independence and a belief in their own worth. They have a strong trading spirit and are known for hard work and determination. They rarely accept defeat easily and tend to persist until they achieve their goals. At the same time, different Yoruba subgroups have their own distinct traits. The Ijebus are known for dogged perseverance and determination. The Egbas are known for being adaptable and open to new ideas, as well as for their love of ease. The Ijeshas and Ekitis are known for physical strength and simplicity in their way of life. While the Oyo people of Oyo Ile, Old Oyo, are often described as intelligent, diplomatic, cautious, and sometimes very conservative. Traditionally, the Yoruba possess deep religious spirit, reverential manners, and show deference to superiors and respect to age. One of the oldest and most widely accepted explanations for the origin of the Yoruba people is the Autochthonous Theory. This theory argues that the Yoruba are indigenous to their present homeland and did not migrate from another continent or distant region. According to this view, the Yoruba people have lived in the area now called Yorubaland since the dawn of human history. At the center of this belief is Ilé-Ifẹ, the sacred city regarded in Yoruba tradition as the origin of the world itself. In Yoruba mythology, Ilé-Ifẹ is not just the birthplace of the Yoruba people. It is believed to be the center of the universe and the place where human life began. According to the tradition, it was at Ilé-Ifẹ that Odùduwà created dry land out of the primordial waters. From this sacred city, Odùduwà's descendants are said to have gone out to establish the other major Yoruba kingdoms. This is why many Yoruba traditions see Ilé-Ifẹ as the spiritual and ancestral center of the Yoruba world. Supporters of the autochthonous theory point to both oral history and archaeology to support their argument. One of the most compelling archaeological discoveries connected to this view is the site known as Iho Eleru, which means cave of ashes. This rock shelter, which was first discovered accidentally in 1922 by a hunter during a hunting expedition, is located in present-day Ondo State within Yorubaland. What archaeologists later found there was remarkable. Excavations at Iho Eleru uncovered human remains, animal bones, nearly 500,000 stone tools, and most importantly, a human skull that has been carbon dated to around 13,000 years ago, which is roughly 11,000 BC. This makes Iho Eleru one of the earliest confirmed signs of human presence in all of West Africa. The remains found there showed that human beings were already living, hunting, and processing animals in Yorubaland during the Stone Age. For supporters of the indigenous origin theory, this discovery is extremely important. It suggests that human communities have existed in the Yoruba region since prehistoric times. Some scholars even argue that the continuity of human presence in the area may explain why many Yoruba origin stories are creation stories rather than migration stories. This becomes even more striking when compared to literal biblical chronologies. Based on some biblical genealogies, Adam and Eve are often calculated to have lived around 4000 BC to 4026 BC. That's about 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. But the remains at Iho Eleru are far older, dating back to 13,000 years ago. The Yoruba creation myth itself reflects this belief in ancient local origins. The most common version of the story begins with Olodumare, the supreme creator. According to this myth, Olodumare sent Obatala to create the earth. Obatala was given a chain to descend from heaven, a snail shell filled with soil, and a cock. However, before completing his mission, Obatala stopped to drink palm wine. He became drunk and fell asleep. Seeing that Obatala had not returned, Olodumare then sent Odùduwà to find him. Odùduwà discovered Obatala asleep and took the items meant for creation. Odùduwà descended from heaven using the chain and found the earth covered entirely by water. He poured the soil from the snail shell onto the waters, creating a small patch of land. He then placed the cock on the land, and the bird scattered the soil across the waters, expanding the land outward. Some versions of the story also include a chameleon, which was used to test whether the land was firm enough to stand on. The place where this happened became known as Ilé-Ifẹ. When Obatala woke up and realized that Odùduwà had completed the task, he was angry. But Olodumare then gave Obatala a new responsibility: the creation of human beings. Odùduwà, meanwhile, became the ancestor of the Yoruba royal lineages, and his sons went on to establish the major Yoruba kingdoms. To believers in the Autochthonous Theory, this story is not just mythology. It is a cultural memory expressing the idea that the Yoruba originated from the very land they occupy today. Combined with archaeological discoveries like Iho Eleru, supporters argue that the evidence points toward a very ancient and continuous Yoruba presence in West Africa. The second major explanation for the origin of the Yoruba people is known as the migration theory. Unlike the Autochthonous theory, this theory argues that the Yoruba came from somewhere outside present-day Nigeria. According to this view, the ancestors of the Yoruba migrated into West Africa from the east, possibly from Egypt, the Sudan, Arabia, or the wider Near East. This idea has existed for centuries and attracted the attention of many scholars, historians, and religious writers. One reason the theory became popular was because of the remarkable civilization associated with Ife. Early European scholars found it difficult to believe that the highly naturalistic bronze and terracotta works found at Ife could have been produced entirely within West Africa without outside influence. Because of this, many began searching for connections between the Yoruba and ancient civilizations such as Egypt, Phoenicia, or the Near East. One of the earliest written accounts connected to this theory came from Muhammad Bello, the son of Usman Dan Fodio and later ruler of the Sokoto Caliphate. In the early 19th century, Bello recorded traditions told to him by Muslim scholars from the north. According to these traditions, the Yoruba were descendants of the Canaanites and belonged to the family of Nimrod from the Bible. Later in the 19th century, the Yoruba clergyman and historian Samuel Johnson also gathered similar traditions while writing on Yoruba history. Johnson collected these stories mainly in Oyo, where centuries of contact with Muslim traders had already influenced local traditions. According to the stories he recorded, Odùduwà was the son of Lamurudu, who was identified as Nimrod, the legendary king of Mecca. The story says that after Muslims attacked and killed Lamurudu, Odùduwà fled with his followers and eventually migrated into West Africa. Johnson believed there was some truth in these traditions. He opined that the Yoruba may have lived for a long time in Nubia under Phoenician influence before migrating westward. He also claimed that the Yoruba preserved certain customs that resembled those of the ancient Hebrews and people of the East. He pointed to practices such as forms of baptism and Oriental styles of dressing as possible evidence of these old connections. Other scholars, less influenced by biblical ideas, developed similar ideas but focused more on Egypt and the Sudan. They argued that the Yoruba may have passed through regions influenced by ancient Egyptian civilization before arriving in West Africa. According to this interpretation, the all-black kingdom of Meroe in present-day Sudan may have played an important role in transmitting Egyptian cultural influences into West Africa. Other scholars suggest that Arab movements and Islamic expansion in North Africa helped trigger the migration southward and westward. In their opinion, Yoruba migrations happened in waves rather than in a single movement. The first major wave is linked to a legendary leader known as Kisra. This migration is believed to have happened around the 7th century AD during wider population movements across the Sudan belt. The traditions say that Kisra led a group of migrants westward into the region that is now northern Nigeria. Part of this group settled around Ida, near the confluence of the Niger and Benue rivers. These settlers later became known as the Igara or Igala people. The main body of migrants continued southward into what later became Yorubaland. When these migrants arrived in the Ekiti area, they met earlier populations that were likely Efa or Egun people. Instead of completely replacing the older inhabitants, they settled among them and gradually mixed with them. Smaller branches of this migration later moved southward and gave rise to groups such as the Idoko branch of the Yoruba. Supporters of the theory argue that these migrants brought many important Yoruba institutions and practices with them. They established towns ruled by sacred kings known as Obas. These towns became political centers surrounded by farming communities. Secret societies assisted the rulers in maintaining law, order, and spiritual authority. This early migration also helped spread Yoruba cultural practices across different regions. Some historians believe these early migrants brought the artistic foundations that later developed into the famous Yoruba terracotta and bronze traditions. The second and most famous migration wave is the Odùduwà migration. According to the theory, this movement happened toward the end of the 10th century AD during the spread of Islam across the Sudan region. The story says that groups who resisted all-conquering Islam and wished to preserve their traditional religion left their old homes guided by the great leader Odùduwà, later deified in tradition. Unlike the earlier Kisra migration, the Odùduwà migration is described as more politically organized. The people who followed Odùduwà are said to have possessed advanced systems of leadership and statecraft. After entering the region near Nupe and crossing the river Niger, they moved southward until they reached Ife. At Ife, the newcomers are believed to have encountered earlier inhabitants. Because of their larger numbers and stronger political organization, they gradually absorbed these earlier populations and established a powerful kingdom. Ilé-Ifẹ then became the religious, political, and artistic center of the Yoruba world. Supporters of this theory often point to the famous Ife bronze and terracotta heads as evidence of the sophistication of this civilization. These sculptures are known for their extraordinary realism and technical quality. To many early scholars, the artworks appeared so advanced that they assumed some connection with older civilizations outside Africa. Today, however, archaeologists generally agree that the artworks were locally made by African craftsmen. The traditions also say that the migrants established the Yoruba religion with its 401 gods at Ilé-Ifẹ. And over time, Ilé-Ifẹ became idealized in Yoruba thought as the spiritual center of creation itself. After consolidating power at Ife, the Yoruba people began expanding outward in different directions. Tradition remembers this expansion as the division of the kingdom among the sons of Odùduwà. During this period, Yoruba influence spread peacefully into many surrounding areas. Kingdoms such as Ketu, Sabe, Oyo, and even Benin trace their origins back to Ilé-Ifẹ. As Yoruba influence expanded, different Yoruba subgroups gradually developed their own identities. Although they became politically separate, they still shared language, religion, and cultural traditions. Later, a second phase of expansion happened through military conquest. The main kingdom that rose to power at this time was Oyo in the Savannah region. Under rulers such as Oramia and Shango, Oyo became a powerful empire. By the 17th and 18th centuries, Oyo exercised influence over large parts of West Africa. Dahomey paid tribute to Oyo, and Yoruba political and cultural influence spread as far as parts of present-day Ghana. Today, many parts of the old migration theory are questioned by modern historians and archaeologists. There is little direct archaeological evidence proving that the Yoruba migrated from Egypt or the Near East. Many of the earlier theories were strongly influenced by biblical interpretations and colonial-era assumptions that advanced African civilizations could not have developed independently within Africa itself. But when we look at the archaeological evidence across Yorubaland, a different picture emerges. Discoveries in places like Iho Eleru show that human beings have occupied parts of Yorubaland for thousands of years, far earlier than any migration theories suggest. The same questions also arise when we examine the famous artworks from Ife. The remarkable terracotta and bronze heads from Ife reveal a society with extraordinary artistic skill and technical knowledge. For a civilization to produce works of such quality, its people must have been settled, organized, and culturally developed long before the period suggested by the migration traditions. This has led many scholars to believe that the Yoruba people, or at least the ancestors of the people who later became Yoruba, had occupied the central Yoruba region far longer than earlier writers assumed. By the 19th century, the great Yoruba kingdoms had begun to decline. Internal wars weakened many Yoruba states, while the transatlantic slave trade brought further instability and destruction. The Yoruba country became divided by long periods of conflict, making it easier for British colonial expansion to take hold in the late 19th century. Yet, despite these difficulties, the Yoruba civilization left a lasting mark on West African history. Yoruba political systems, religious traditions, commerce, and artistic achievements influenced many neighboring societies. Today, the artistic heritage of the Yoruba people continues to receive worldwide recognition, especially through the famous Ife terracotta and the Benin bronzes, which stand among the greatest artistic achievements in African history. In the end, the question of Yoruba origins is still open to debate. Which theory do you think is more convincing? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.